Debbie Georgatos. Welcome to my show, America, Can We Talk? Today we're going to talk about Trump's brilliant impeachment hardball, the manufactured impeachment treachery, and Michelle Malkin joins us to talk about her new book, Open Borders, Inc., and finally, Liz Lies Again. And I'll tell you why these stories matter to you. Stay tuned.
Debbie Georgatos, host of America Can We Talk, is an author, attorney, and political analyst whose mission is to inspire the American political conversation about preserving liberty in the best country on earth.
Hi, Debbie Georgatos. Welcome again to America Can We Talk. President Trump played hardball in Washington yesterday. It was a great strategy. I want to share with you, you may have heard in the news for today's First Five, that the White House sent a letter over to the Congress. This is a letter from the White House attorney, an 8-page letter addressed to Nancy Pelosi as Speaker, Adam Schiff as Chairman of the Select Committee on Intelligence, Angelo as the Chairman of the House Foreign Affairs, and Elijah Cummings as Chairman of the House Committee on Oversight and Reform. The short story is the President's Counsel sent a letter to the Congress essentially saying he, President Trump, and his entire administration are not going to respond to this House impeachment inquiry, to the summons, to the subpoenas, to what they've been sending out to the White House, demanding production of documents, demanding witnesses, and the White House is saying not going to comply. Normally, I'm way in favor of the rule of law and order and following the law and doing the right thing. And in this case, President Trump is doing exactly the right thing. I want to explain why. We're going to, a little later, just right after this First Five, go into the details of what the House is doing. But the short story is this. President Trump is calling the bluff. He is exposing to America, and really to the media, if they would choose to pay attention, how grotesque the conduct is of the Democrats running the U.S. House, trying to do an impeachment inquiry without really doing an impeachment. They won't hold a vote in the House. They won't hold a vote to initiate actual impeachment proceedings. They're instead trying to move forward on a series of rule adjustments, changes, a concocted farce of a prosecution, essentially, of the president under the impeachment rules that the House changed. In short, I want to tell you very quickly what the President's Counsel had to say to those members of the House. One, basically, they're writing on behalf of President Trump, and they, in response to, and they characterize the demands for documents from the House as legally unsupported demands made as part of what you have labeled contrary to the Constitution of the United States and all past bipartisan precedent as an impeachment inquiry. They actually put impeachment inquiry in quotation marks, and they basically make the point throughout this letter, footnoted back to references about law, the Constitution, the statements made by Democrats in the past, essentially saying, you're trying to set up this impeachment in a manner that does not give the president or his team any protection of due process, no protection of the president, no ability of the president to see the witnesses against him, to cross-examine them himself, to examine documents. The Democrats really tried to set up a pretty much kangaroo court impeachment. It's a kangaroo court impeachment effort. And they did this because they know that President Trump doesn't want to comply. This is crazy what they're trying to do, but they're trying to put him in a box to where he's going to have to end up saying no, as he's doing, and then they're going to use that as the basis for their impeachment, that President Trump is obstructing justice by not complying with their kangaroo court impeachment. More specifics on the letter sent from this White House counsel to the U.S. House. They talked about the idea that they're denying the president the right to cross-examine witnesses, call witnesses, receive transcripts of testimony, have access to evidence, have counsel present, other basic rights guaranteed to all Americans. So they spell out, they're really exposing, and they made this letter public right away. This is not the president failing to be transparent. This is the president being very transparent and really calling on the carpet Nancy Pelosi and her effort to start impeachment without holding an impeachment vote, holding a vote of the members of the Congress to whether or not they want to move forward on impeachment, a vote Nancy Pelosi does not want to hold. She doesn't want to force her Democrat colleagues who serve districts that Trump won. She doesn't want to force them into a vote, but even more so, she doesn't want to give President Trump any chance to put forward his defense, to point out what he's being accused of is actually a big nothing burger. And in fact, when you look at the conduct of Democrats in the same circumstances, far worse conduct. The letter also goes on to say that they just blatantly call out the Democrats. This is just an effort to overturn the 2016 election results. Specifically, and so they're just saying, basically, you just don't like the results. They actually point out comments made by that Chairman Schiff, the House Democrat chairman, has lied to the public already in this context, saying he knew nothing about this whistleblower, never talked to him. And then it turns out actually he did talk to him. They're pointing out all of the dishonesty on the Democrat side, saying, look, you're trying to set up President Trump, and we're not playing your game. We're not playing your game. This is a brilliant, a very hardball strategy by the president. But instead of getting entangled in the hearing the Pelosi team was trying to set up in the House, this is Trump saying, not playing your game. If you're going to go ahead and you want to do an impeachment, then go right ahead, hold the vote. And that triggers a whole bunch of other protections for the president that Pelosi does not want his team to have. Pelosi wants Trump cornered, vulnerable, unable to defend himself, and Trump, surprisingly, is simply having none of it. The letter is just, in fact, I'll tell you on our website, you can go read it, americacanwetalk.org, on the homepage, under shows, drop down, you can read this letter. It's brilliant to read, and it's great to understand. This is a president saying he sees exactly what the Democrats are doing. In fact, I'll tell you more after the first five today of how this was an impeachment process. They paved the way for it. They set up the way for it long before any phone call between President Trump and Ukrainian President Zelensky. Vital to understand. This entire impeachment has nothing whatsoever to do with that July 25th phone call between President Trump and Ukrainian President Zelensky. This is a long time coming effort to take out the president because the Democrats are livid that he won. And this was set up by the Democrats way ahead of time. And this is Trump saying, not playing, I'm forcing your hand. You are going to have to do what it is that you are required to do, or else I'm not going to play that game. And that, my friends, is today's first five. We'll turn on and talk. I use the expression or the label, this segment of the show, the manufactured impeachment treachery. I cannot urge you strongly enough to follow a few steps along the way to realize what President Trump is talking about when he's saying this is not valid. This is not a valid impeachment inquiry. We're not playing this game. To start with, the Democrats, as soon as when President Trump won in 2016, he had a majority of Republicans in the House and the Senate, had the 2018 midterms, and the Democrats took over the U.S. House. They have been, since the moment the elections were over in 2018, and the Democrats realized that they were again going to have the majority in the House, much of what they have done along the way, procedurally and rule changes, has been to set up the president to impeach him. Again, the Democrats are not truly in the slightest alarmed or even thinking about what President Trump said to Zelensky on the phone in July. They're thinking all along, how can we get this guy out? As a small aside, before I get into how the House Democrats tried to set him up, the whole argument about the Zelensky conversation with Trump in July of this year was that somehow, Trump was trying to arm twist the Ukrainians to begin an investigation again into the Burisma company, which was the energy company that Joe Biden's son was on the board of. That was what Joe Biden, when he went over to the Ukraine, and literally, if you believe the words he said on national television, committed bribery, told the Ukrainians, you're going to fire that prosecutor who is investigating Biden's son's company, or we're withholding $1 billion in aid. This is unquestioned. This is Biden on tape saying that, bragging about it. But all of that was the talk now about the impeachment inquiry is the idea that Trump somehow was wrongly arm twisting the Ukrainians to reopen the investigation. But actually, in a great development, the journalist John Solomon, who's now is joining Fox News, but he was on with Sean Hannity, said that he had discovered that the Ukrainians had actually already reopened the investigation into Burisma, the investigation that Biden forced them to shut down. they'd already reopened it in February of this year, months before Trump was on the phone with Zelensky. But getting around to how the House Democrats tried to set up President Trump, it's important to understand what they did. So the Democrats win the majority in the 2018 election. So starting January 2019, they have the majority in the House. They, even before the House got started with a new session in 2019, they changed House rules. They changed impeachment rules. They changed committee rules. And they removed the ability of House Republicans from the entire impeachment process. So when Trump is saying this isn't fair, he's exactly right. The Democrats, through rule changes, paved their way to set themselves up to be able to go after Trump, putting him in a position where he could have no due process, no ability to review witnesses, no ability to understand the charges against him, no ability to have Republicans helping him. This was the Democrats thinking they were going to corner him and the people they subpoenaed in the State Department to show up in Congress, force their testimony, force production of documents, but leaving Trump no means to defend himself, no due process rights, and leaving the Republicans in the House no ability to participate. And so this is understanding they paved the way by rule changes, and then I want to get around to what these subpoenas really are. Because there's been no House vote, a vote on the floor of the House to move toward impeaching the president, all that the Democrats are really issuing to the White House are really kind of like in civil litigation, a request for production of documents. They dance around using fuzzy language. They say they use the word subpoena, but they actually don't have the authority to issue subpoenas consistent with an impeachment process because they didn't vote for the process. They won't hold the vote. They don't want to have, there's several reasons why the Democrats don't want to hold that vote. I mentioned one already. The Democrats in the House do not want to be forced to go on record about whether or not they're supporting impeaching Trump. That is one piece of it. But the second piece of it that's really important is to recognize that if the Democrats have the actual formal impeachment vote and make a real, formal, genuine impeachment process begin, then what they're doing is subject to judicial review, is subject to having courts look at what they're doing. So they're trying to block Trump. He's got no avenue right now to appeal what they're doing because they set this kind of outside the system process, outside the impeachment system process. Trump has no way to go to court to try to argue what they're demanding. He has no right to defend himself, no right for the Republicans to participate in these impeachment hearings. The entire thing is set up to corner the president and leave him no judicial avenue out, no way out. And so, I mean, this idea, in fact, some of the language they use in this subpoena, I'll just read you some of it. They talk about, we are hereby transmitting a subpoena that compels you to produce documents but by October 18th. But it's not a subpoena that you have the authority to issue when you have judicial authority to issue a subpoena. But the House doesn't have that. And so they are trying to play games with him, trying to corner him, and using language that is trying to imply they have the right to demand to subpoena documents, but they don't. And Trump knows it. Trump's lawyer knows it. Nancy Pelosi knows it. The Democrats on the Hill know it. They all know they tried to set him up and get him to a place where he had nowhere to go. He was just going to have to comply or, as he's doing now, refusing to comply. And understand what the mission is. The Democrats want to characterize Trump's refusal to produce documents in response to this subpoena as obstruction that itself would justify impeachment. You have to get this. They tried impeachment with the Mueller investigation, the Trump-Russia collusion. They talked about impeachment because of Stormy Daniels. They talked about impeachment because of the Emoluments Clause. They talked about impeachment after Mueller, who found there was no Russia-Trump collusion. But they tried to talk about impeachment. Well, maybe it was then obstruction. Maybe Trump really didn't collude, but he obstructed us anyway. They're still doing that here. They're trying to put Trump in a position where they can argue, we demanded documents which we had no right to demand because we won't hold an impeachment vote, but they want to demand the documents and then characterize President Trump's refusal to cooperate to produce those documents as itself an impeachable offense, as an obstruction of their subpoena efforts. This is, and when I say it's just important to understand this, I mean, tell you folks, the Democrats have been thinking about this a long time. They want that guy out. They do not like what he's doing. He is taking away their power. He's draining their swamp. He is reducing the size of the federal government. He's putting in place policies that are driving our economy to new strength, driving our unemployment numbers low, our job rates high. Everything is going swimmingly under President Trump's policies. The Democrats realize they're in a terrible position in 2020. They can't really run on, look how bad the economy is. Are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Because everyone's, yes, we are. They've got to try to paint a cloud of some kind of disrepute, wrongdoing onto Trump and his administration. All their efforts so far have failed. In fact, Trump's approval ratings stay very high among his own base because people realize, and more Americans are seeing it, this is nothing but a cooked up hoax of an effort by the Democrats to bring Trump down. So this whole Zelensky call, I want to make sure about the Zelensky call too. The other reason the Democrats want to get this done as fast as they can is the more attention that is paid to what Trump actually said on the phone to Ukrainian President Zelensky about Burisma, the more attention goes back to what Biden actually did when his son was on the board of Burisma, and Biden actually said to the Ukrainian president. And a couple other points that are just not going well in the Democrats' effort to get this president. Another one is that these all this conversation about whistleblowers has been really a backfiring on them. Also, it turns out that the whistleblower actually spoke with Adam Schiff beforehand, and Adam Schiff denied it. And he said, okay, yeah, actually, I did talk to him. The whistleblower's lawyer is a former Clapper lawyer. This doesn't make them look good. It makes them look like they are just, that they're just kind of all in cahoots, all in bed with him. There was also a great release of something today. Again, the Democrats' efforts to destroy this president are backfiring over and over and over. The other thing that happened, the Democrats are not excited, not happy about, is the fact that one of the FISA court judges, in fact, the director of national intelligence, issued a decision today in which he released 2018 FISA court, his own 2018 FISA court ruling about ongoing unauthorized database search queries by the FBI agents and contractors in 2017 and 2018. Let me remind you how this all ties into the effort of the Democrats to get Trump. The reason that one of the first things that became evident to people while they were watching the Trump-Russia, ongoing stuff in Washington was that the Mueller investigation was not the beginning of the story. The Mueller investigation was the middle of the story. The FBI having to put someone in charge of this alleged conspiracy between Trump and Russia, but backing up before that, there was under the Obama administration in 2015 and 2016, there was profound abuse of the NSA database, profound abuse of accessing private information about American citizens. And this was done under the Obama administration, finally came to the attention of the then Director of National Intelligence, Mike Rogers, who realized why are all these queries coming into the NSA database that are not related to the actual purpose of the NSA database, which is really supposed to be about foreign spies. So the queries to the NSA database were a red flag to Mike Rogers. He warned people. And then Rosemary Collyer, who was the head at the time, I think she was the head judge of the FISA court, she issued a devastating opinion saying, something really was wrong in what was happening under the Obama era FBI and DOJ pinging the NSA database, spying on Americans. And So she called that out and saying there's something really, really wrong here. This ultimately got the Democrats and the people inside the FBI have to decide, you know what, we can't keep using this NSA stuff to spy on Trump, which is what they were doing, spying on Trump and his team and others. But they realized it wasn't flying well. So then they eventually got the Mueller investigation going. But what was released today was proof, but this is again released by the Director of National Intelligence, a 2018 FISA court ruling that memorialized, that informed everyone there was ongoing unauthorized database search queries by the FBI and FBI contractors in the period covering 2017 and 2018. So even after Trump is president, the Mueller inquiry is going on, trying to find some reason to get rid of this guy. These people inside the FBI and DOJ and contractors to whom they gave access were still using the NSA database to spy on Americans. I mean, folks, these people had just decided we are the ruling elite. We run this country. We don't follow the laws. We don't care what we are or not supposed to do in this NSA database. In fact, there was this guy who's writing this opinion piece about it was just talking about the idea of this small group activity, they were calling it, which likely is people like Fusion GPS. They kept right on pinging the NSA database, getting into private data that the NSA had collected about American citizens, much of it related to Trump and his team and his affiliates. And why that all is relevant to this discussion today is this. What has really been exposed in the time since President Trump won his election, and there's begun to be an investigation inside the FBI, inside the DOJ, of what happened in this lead up to the 2016 election, what happened inside the FBI that they got them to the point they were setting up witnesses, they were lying on FBI applications for FISA warrants, applications for warrants made to the FISA court to spy on people. Those applications were made based on lies. I mean, there was to say an ongoing coup inside the FBI and DOJ, even from before the time President Trump actually won his election. And this guy's saying, yeah, and even ongoing. What you really have revealed for the American people to see is that inside the FBI and DOJ, these people under the Obama administration and the Obama holdovers who continued this conduct, these people are telling America, we are entitled to anything we want. We will get the information we want. We will look for the information we want. We will get it however we can. Nobody can stop us. We don't care if it's starting to be exposed. We don't care the American people are starting to realize what we've been up to. We don't care that Mike Rogers exposed us for tapping in the NSA database. They kept it up and kept it up and kept it up because these people think they have the right to run America, to rule this country, to ignore the vote of the people who chose President Trump, to ignore the investigation by Congress ongoing, trying to get at the root of the FBI, DOJ efforts to take out President Trump. This ruling class is even too kind of a term. It is a ruling cabal. It is a totalitarian mindset that says, we run this country, we decide who's president, we will use everything in our means, everything we have access to, legal or not, to find some way to destroy this president. And that is eventually what's going to come out, I believe, and I hope and pray, when Attorney General Barr completes his investigation into the roots of the Trump-Russia collusion hoax that led us to the Mueller investigation and that led us to where we are today. I know there was a lot of tangled pieces, and I tried to pull them all together, but the bottom line of it is, it could not be more important for Americans to understand that what Barr and Durham and the Republicans in the Senate, if they ever get their act together, and the Republicans who had the majority in the House, all of them were trying to uncover all of the various steps of wrongdoing inside the FBI and Department of Justice and probably the CIA. What they wanted to uncover was that conduct, but also the mindset, the ruling elitism of these leftists who had decided early on, we're Obama's team. We like the leftward direction of the country under him. We're on Hillary's team. We want her next. And this guy, Trump, How dare he think he can run in this election? How dare he stir up the American people to vote for him? And that is really what the Democrats, you talk about why they're so inspired to take Trump out. When we finally have an understanding of the depth of determination of the leftists in this country to eliminate Trump, which is ultimately to eliminate the power of the American people to elect their own president, the left will be in very, very big trouble. And they'd like nothing more than to get Trump out before all of this hits the fan. Now we're going to turn to what I believe is, I hope we have online. We have a great guest, I believe, joining us. And while I'm sure if we're connecting with her or not, Michelle, yes, okay, yay. Michelle Malkin is the author of this book. I'm holding it for you to see. And I'm going to read you the title. It's just an unbelievably good book. Please forgive all the sticky sticking out of the side. It is a book by Michelle Malkin called Open Borders, Inc. Who's Funding America's Destruction? And it is like an encyclopedia. I can hardly tell you how great and fact-filled this book is, but I believe we have Michelle Malkin online. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Debbie.
I need volume up, way up. Michelle?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I don't know if you were here. I said a moment ago, but your book, this new book of yours, is like an encyclopedia for anyone wanting to understand the nefarious forces at work in this country and around the world trying to interfere with America's ability to have secure borders. So first of all, congratulations on a great, great book.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was in many ways like writing an encyclopedia, and I could probably do new issues of it every month. But I wanted to compile as much information as possible, put it between two covers, because I think that there are so many viewers and listeners and readers out there who've been hungering for a resource like this, especially in the last 3 years since the illegal alien caravans that, of course, your state has seen lay siege to the southern border there, have escalated. These things, of course, have been going on for years. But I thought it was really important for people to understand that the subsidies are coming from everywhere. It's not just the left. It's many religious organizations, it's tax-subsidized groups, and there's a lot of corporate backing, Hollywood backing, and media backing of all of this deliberate immigration anarchy that we've seen overrun our country.
That is a great summary. I will tell our listeners, you know what, I mentioned all this sticking out in this book. Among the many great things you do is break down all the different entities, internal, domestic, foreign, NGOs that are all playing into the astonishing just collapse of border security and also playing into the way the American public thinks about the border. So I'll just, I'll tell you, our connection is a little bit staticky, but I'm going to just ask this question, which was, I think when America watched the border, the caravans coming up from the southern border and just flooding our border, people just thought, wow, this is organic. This is just amazing. These poor people must be all starving, and that's why they are doing this. And so it made Americans both sympathetic to the caravans and assume that anyone trying to contain it, enforce the border, were people just kind of being mean or unsympathetic. And you really turned the argument on its head. I'd love to have you talk a little bit about this group, Pueblos Sin Fronteras. Probably not pronouncing it correctly. Can you talk about them?
Yes, they have been pinpointed as sort of the central organizer, right? The central community organizer for the caravans, and they definitely are a huge piece of it. Pueblos Sin Fronteras is nominally headed by a man named Ireneo Mujica, who is binational. In other words, he holds citizenship in both the United States and in Mexico. And I tried to contact him directly because I think the way in which he obtained U.S. citizenship may have been even fraudulent in and of itself. He tells local reporters in the Southwest that his family were seasonal workers and that he obtained amnesty during the 1986 Reagan amnesty. There was a special provision there for seasonal agricultural workers, but his biography is a little bit fuzzy about where exactly he and his family worked. Nonetheless, he got his U.S. citizenship. He was educated here in America, and he first started as a community organizer for illegal aliens in Minnesota, and then came back to Arizona and crisscrossed the border multiple times before he finally settled on his main job as a Sherpa, essentially, bringing over these illegal alien caravans. He also trained with Doctors Without Borders, and that is one of the non-governmental organizations that works not just south of our border, but also in Europe to provide shuttle services and land directional services for illegal aliens, migrants, whatever you want to call them, people who are trespassing across our borders, who are boarding ships that are run by other NGOs in Europe and then dumped on Italy's shore and other European shores. And Pueblos Sin Fronteras had its political and partisan roots in Chicago. And so I talk about the other sanctuary churches involved. There's another very famous figure, a multiple illegal alien deportee named Elvira Arellano, who sought and claimed sanctuary in one of the churches that is loosely affiliated with Barack Obama and the social justice organizing left. But I think what's important for people to understand is if they think that it stops with Pueblos Sin Fronteras, they are unfortunately, sadly mistaken, because there is a vast illegal alien shelter network that is run from Central America through Mexico all the way into the interior of our country. And unfortunately, many religious organizations, primarily the U.S. Catholic Conference of Bishops and the Catholic Church, help induce, aid, abet, and shelter illegal aliens, and then see their own financial benefits and profits reaped from it, because what they're doing is relocating an entire population of illegal aliens into our country who then fill their pews and their collection plates.
That was such a fabulous and substantive answer. And honestly, I'm telling our readers, this book is so filled with knowledge about many, many things. One thing I love that you did, Michelle, and we're talking with Michelle Malkin, author of this new book, which I just held up, Open Borders, Inc. You do trace so many organizations and the role of the Catholic Church and just so much detail. And it's kind of amazing because it's like an encyclopedia of information, and yet it reads, I found I'm reading quickly because it's so fast moving in the way you describe things. It's so thorough. One thing I love that you did is in this book near the end, I'm going to get the right page. Yeah, you have a conclusion chapter called Border Defenders Action Plan. And the reason I love this is I think many people watch the borders being a mess. They even read a little bit about these organizations and the VOLAGs, the voluntary agencies that keep helping resettlement here. And people feel like they can't do anything about it. They can maybe write their congressman and say, hey, I think we should reduce the refugee people coming, reduce the numbers, or we should make other changes. But you have the most concrete list of things people can do to actually try to challenge this kind of it's a conspiracy, maybe isn't the right word, but conspiracy of NGOs and Pueblos Sin Fronteras and VOLAGs to really have an impact on the groups that are enabling and perpetuating this. The hardest one you hit on is the very first one I want to talk to you about, where you were talking about no more, to try to be a border defender, no more donations to churches, nonprofits, NGOs that aid and abet illegal immigration. That, Michelle Malkin, is so hard. I'd love to have you talk about how impactful that could be if people would do that.
Well, the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops takes in billions of dollars, and a large part of that is taxpayer subsidies, in addition to all of the huge collections during the National Collection Week for Thanksgiving, for example. And this money then just gets plowed into these illegal alien shelters, for example, that run up the entire spine of Mexico. Direct subsidies for shelters that are inducing desperate families to do desperate, dangerous things that enrich coyotes, that enrich drug cartels. And you have to follow the money to find the truth. And you have to ask yourself that when these radical left-wing bishops preach about welcoming the stranger, is it really about compassion? Is it really about practicing your faith? Or is what you're doing, the practical impact of it, sabotaging our borders in service of a larger social agenda that is often brazenly exposed by Pope Francis himself? This is a man who has designated himself as the #1 anti-Trump resistor in the world. And the quotes that I've compiled in Open Borders, Inc. over the last couple of years of Pope Francis, every single day waking up to find a pretext to attack our president for guarding our nation in the same way that the Vatican guards its own little nation state. I mean, the walls are high. There are bulletproof windows in the cars that the Pope travels in. If it's good for him, why isn't it good for us? And as one really astute immigration enforcement advocate within the Catholic Church, a renegade, said, and I quote it because I love it, "Even heaven has a very strict immigration policy."
Yes, ma'am. Michelle Malkin, I'm reading, honestly, I could spend about 3 hours, which we don't have, but all of what you laid out here, I think so many people are not aware of the details. And I think, as I say, the hardest thing for people, they think, what can I do? And then when the suggestion is, well, maybe you could go after your own church. And I will say the Lutheran Church, which is my family heritage of Lutheranism, I mean, they are as complicit as the Catholic Church in bringing large numbers of refugees to America, making money off of it, depositing them in some arena or area, and leaving them once they're settled in with no real focus on assimilation, no real focus on their on whether or not they're beginning to contribute to the American society or not. But back to your one last quick thing in this Catholic Church I was not aware of. Catholic Campaign for Human Development. You write extensively about that. And one thing you say about them, which I just had no idea, they're funding things like restorative justice efforts in public schools to chip away at effective discipline for disruptive students, environmental justice, campaigns for green jobs, a social justice league. I mean, the political advocacy attached to this Catholic, CCHD, Catholic Campaign for Human Development. I'm going to tell you, I don't think 1 in 1,000 Catholics in America realize that happens. And go. This is a closing. Any other thoughts you have on that subject? Please go ahead.
Yeah, CCHD has its roots in an alliance between a radical Chicago bishop, Bernard Shiel, and Saul Alinsky himself. This is not some sort of conspiracy theory about the left and the Catholic Church. And CCHD, as you mentioned, has become the social justice organizing arm of the Catholic Church. I think that there should be congressional investigations of the nonprofit tax-exempt status of many of these religious charities that operate as blatant political arms. And I also think that they should be criminally prosecuted for violating the many, many laws under U.S. Chapter 8 and of the U.S. Code 1324 against aiding, abetting, harboring, and sheltering illegal aliens. And, it is a difficult step, but it is a very simple first step to defund Open Borders, Inc. in our own homes. And you can apply that same thinking to Hollywood. And I trace all of the money that Hollywood actors and directors and creative people are pouring into the illegal alien lawyers lobby to represent illegal aliens, all the way up to the Supreme Court for subsidized abortions, for the right to employment benefits, and the right to be protected in perpetuity from deportation. It is a lot to comprehend and to consume, but if we are to be prepared and if we were to get off the sidelines and actually do something about this, knowledge is power, sunlight is the best disinfectant, follow the money, and find the truth.
Michelle Malkin, I commend you again for just a fabulous book. Again, for our listeners, I'll hold it up. Michelle Malkin's new book, Open Borders, Inc., Who's Funding America's Destruction? Great book. You should buy it as an encyclopedia. Honestly, it's so filled with data and footnotes and understanding really what we saw at the southern border was not an organic uprising of impoverished people, clamoring to come to America for a new life. It's a very orchestrated, supported mission. Ultimately, Pueblos Fronteras and others involved who actually have the very socialist mission of ending borders, of obliterating borders and having a globalist society. That thinking is at the core of Pueblos Sin Fronteras and other groups. It is an invasion, the term President Trump wisely chose, and it's up for the American people to repel it. So, Michelle Malkin, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, folks, I can't urge enough. Great, great book. You'll love it. One last quick story for today, which I want to hit on. I called it, I think, Liz Lies. And I just, we had this, we have presidential campaigns going on. We have the Democrats running presidential candidates. And you have the effort of the Democrat Party to get one, and the media to prop up their candidate. So you have, as an example, Elizabeth Warren running for president. She's actually the front runner. It appears right now, appears to be the front runner. And so I call this segment Liz Lies, because what she's really doing is one thing to say, okay, she lied about being of Native American heritage. We soon discovered that was kind of a Pocahontas thing. That wasn't really what she was. And she finally said, okay, maybe I was wrong. But the latest lie she was caught on is so symbolic. I want to spend just 1 minute on it and telling you what it is. She's told a story about herself many times on campaign speeches, in interviews, that she was a victim way back in the day, I think it was 1979, when she said she was fired as a public school teacher when she was pregnant, because she was pregnant. As soon as she had her pregnancy bump show, the school fired her. And that actually did used to happen. There were school districts that felt that women teachers shouldn't be pregnant, which fortunately is, mostly gone by the wayside. But she claimed that, and she's told the story over and over and over and over and over. It's actually the year 1971, and she wrote about it in her book in 2013 called A Fighting Chance. That story has now been proven false. 2 examples. There are 2 proofs of it. One was a YouTube that came out in 2008. YouTube, an interview of her as a Harvard professor talking about how she decided not to continue teaching because she didn't have the sufficient certifications to be considered a full-time regular teacher. She needed documents, so that she ended up resigning 2 months later because she wanted to go back and get the requisite degree or certification that she needed. So she told the story in an interview, I had to resign. On top of that, you have documents from the local school board. The local school board, at the time, hearing she's telling this fairy tale on campaign trail, that they fired her for being pregnant. Local school boards come up with documents saying her contract had actually been renewed. Her contract got renewed, but she resigned a couple of months later. So these people are saying, we have the records right here. And I raised this story in the grand scheme of life. This isn't like lying about, robbing a bank. It's not lying about a crime, but it is something that goes to the character of Elizabeth Warren. She lied about her ethnicity so she could be a victim. She lied about her ethnicity, being Native American, so she could get ahead of other people who actually maybe were Native Americans. She lied about her ethnicity to be a victim, to be a member of a minority, to lure a minority voter support to her. She perpetuated that lie for years. This lie is the same kind of lie. She tells that lie about being fired because she was pregnant because she wants to be a victim. She likes the victim status. She thinks it helps her in the Democrat race. It helps her to relate to women because she's encouraging women to feel like they're victims and they're outraged and mistreated. And so she was outraged and she was mistreated. Join me, I'm a victim too. And it also goes to her character because even after her own interview is out and everyone can see, she already told the story in an interview that, in fact, she left of her own volition because she wanted to pursue getting some kind of certificate she needed. And when the school board has come forward saying, no, we renewed your contract, you decided to quit 2 months later, she won't back down. It is that left wing, we never have to tell the truth. We lie, the media will cover this up, the media will drop it instantly because she is the likely presidential candidate on the Democrat side. But folks, it does matter. It matters if you lie to the people. It matters if you look people in the face, in the camera, and lie. We don't need that kind of person in the White House. Now, today, I'm going to turn to our end of the show. We always do. I tell you why the stories we talked about today matter to you. Derek the Wonderful is sitting in for Matt the Wonderful, who is not here today. Derek's going to get our little thing up on the screen, or why it matters to you. And so the first one, Trump's brilliant impeachment hardball. Trump has called out Pelosi's fraud on the Constitution for what it is. He is not refusing to comply with lawful congressional demands. He's demanding that those demands be, in fact, lawful. Trump is demanding that the House vote to authorize impeachment proceedings. He's forcing him to vote or drop it. Vote or drop it is what he's saying. Pelosi is in a trap of her own making. The artifice of House rules and the sham of whistleblower Mueller 2.0 are exposed. Trump's Ukraine call transcript, which he released almost immediately, is transparently not high crimes and misdemeanors. And because they don't have him on that, they're now going with this, going to set him up and lie and say that he's engaged in obstruction. The Dems in Trump's won districts in 2016 don't want to vote for impeachment. Pelosi will have to take her rules to the Supreme Court, where she'll lose, or go ahead and hold that impeachment vote, which she doesn't want to do. On the manufactured impeachment treachery, the next slide, yep. Pelosi designed House rules. This is contrived ahead of time construction of the path to impeachment. Pelosi designed House rule changes as soon as Democrats took control in 2018. Everything about those changes was to allow lawyered artifice to substitute for clear constitutional due process on the subject of impeachment. Letters demanding documents and testimony are not lawful subpoenas. Even they try slipping the word subpoena in there, they're not lawful subpoenas. Refusals to comply are not obstruction of justice. Denial of GOP participation is blatantly unconstitutional. Without an official House vote, with all members on record, yea or nay, as to moving forward with impeachment, there's no congressional authority to compel testimony or document production on the subject of impeachment. To claim otherwise is to violate the Constitution's separation of powers. And on Liz, lies again. Elizabeth Warren is not an Indian. She never was. She gamed the system to her benefit for decades, and Americans know this. Now, Liz is demonstrably, unequivocally lying and doubling down on her lies about the role of her pregnancy in her decision to leave teaching in 1971. These lies are, in effect, lies about her country and countrymen in 1971. She was not mistreated in any way, and she should be ashamed to claim otherwise. Americans are not okay with the ruling class norms that everybody lies. Americans are not okay with the ruling class lies that America is a terrible, bad place. And that, my friends, is America Can We Talk for today. Please tune in every Monday through Thursday, 3 p.m. Central Time for America Can We Talk, where I always talk truth about America because America matters. I'll talk to you next time.
America, Can We Talk? Truth about America.
Can you hear